Hello, I'm Dr. Hannah O'Regan from the Department of Classics and Archaeology at the University of Nottingham, and I'm an archaeologist. I thought it might be useful to give just a brief overview of what archaeology is. So you may have seen documentaries on TV and you might have thought that looks quite interesting, but you've never studied it at school and you don't really know what it's about. So I'm just going to briefly give you an overview and give you an idea of what it would be like if you wanted to study archaeology. So what is archaeology? Archaeology is effectively the study of people in the past and the remains they left behind. So those remains could be buildings, they could be pits, they could be ditches, they could be artefacts, they could be the bones of the animals that they were eating. So it's the physical remains that people have left in the past. And we study those and we can learn about the lives of those people. Now, it's similar to history in that we're learning about people in the past, but unlike history, we're learning about people who didn't necessarily have a written record. So, say for prehistory, long before writing was invented, we can study how people were living, what they were doing, etc. But from the historical times onwards, yes, we look at historical records. We can also challenge them because we can look at the archaeological evidence that we have in front of us and say, okay, well, the historical records tell us this, but the archaeological records tell us that. So where are the similarities? Where are the differences? And some of the really important things that we can do with archaeology is tell the stories of the people for whom there is no written record. Those could be those prehistoric people, or it could be the women, the poor, the people from ethnic minorities or ethnic majorities, depending on where you are in the world, who were missed out of the written accounts because they're being written by people for whom those people are not important. And so archaeology can give those people back their stories. And it covers a huge range of time and geography. So in our department, for example, we've got colleagues who study China and the archaeology of the Silk Road. We've got people who study Southwest Asia. We've got people who study the Mediterranean into Europe and then up into Britain. So we've got a massive geographic range. I myself study early human evolution from South Africa. So huge geographic range. Also a massive time depth. So we've got a time depth which goes from, early humans, or early hominins as we more correctly call them, so back millions of years, right the way up until the Industrial Revolution. So we've got huge amount of time to consider and a huge area of geography to consider. And archaeology brings all of that together to tell the stories of our shared human past, the stories of people wherever they were, and what they were doing, and also a very important point is how those stories impact on us today, and how sometimes those stories of the past are being used or misused by people now in order to further particular narratives. So archaeology is current. There's a real importance and a currency to it, particularly in terms of when archaeology gets mixed up with politics, but there's also that story of looking at how people have lived, thrived and survived over the last millennia. And that's archaeology.